Hey, so I was editing this, and I wanted to clarify some things before I get into my story. I know that many of you out there have gone through much worse than what I explain here. But I do think that everybody should be able to share their story without fear of blowback or retribution. Unfortunately, that's not always the case, but I would hope for all of you to be able to tell your stories without being afraid of what comes back. For better or for worse, here's my story. So, this isn't really a video I'd ever thought I'd be making, at least not at this time, but recent events in my life have kind of proved to me that it's necessary to be open about this stuff. I've tried bottling it in, and it clearly doesn't work. So I want to open up some of what I've been going through with all of you. For starters, hi, my name's Hayden. Although most of you know me as Skip the Tutorial, and for about the last 6 years of my life, and maybe even longer, I've suffered with major depressive disorder. MDD, clinical depression, really whatever word you want to call it, depression. And it's been recurrent. And while most of the time I have had ways to deal with it, and you have your ups and downs just like the rest of life. In this year, it's really gotten bad. And that sort of culminated a few weeks ago where I was involuntarily admitted into a psychiatric hospital. Now, I don't say any of this to try and scare any of you. I'm probably doing better in my mental state than I have been in the past few months because I'm starting to work on it. So don't be afraid for me. But I do think it's necessary to talk about this stuff. It's a story that I want to have control over, and recent events have kind of proved to me that it's best if I'm the one controlling the narrative and telling my side of the story, as opposed to letting other people do it. So, to sort of set the scene, it was about February 7th. I was, for lack of a better word, going through some pretty negative thoughts, and not going into specifics, but I was in my car, I was at home, and I was crying. And in this very emotionally vulnerable state, I didn't really know what to do. Until I get a text kind of out of the moment from my aunt. And she was telling me about a dinner that she had with one of her friends and saying that we need to go to this spot. So I'm in this dark spot, and I call her, and she's on the other side of town, so she starts making her way over to me, which is about a 20 to 30 minute drive. And as she's kind of making her way towards me, she keeps me on the line, but she doesn't call my parents. I'm 18, I live with both of my parents. The thing about that is that my parents would have been not that far away to really help me, which in retrospect is problematic, because if I was really in a dark spot, as she later put it, in high risk, then it wasn't so great to leave me unattended and vulnerable for that long. She consoles me in the car with her, and she's sort of asking me what I want to do and telling me about her own experiences with stuff that's similar to what I'm going through. And then she gets me in the car, and we start driving. And we drive for about maybe an hour, 50 minutes. And during that, she's asking me what I want to do. I want to go back to my parents. I want to see them, because I in previous experiences that I've had, I generally calm down with them the best. Why I didn't call them in that space, I can't particularly say. The method of chaos. But yeah, I keep saying that I want to go home, and she's like, well, we can get you to a hospital. I'm like, I don't really want to go to a hospital. I want to be with my parents. And then finally, she sort of gives in, and she takes me home, and I'm at my bedroom. I don't decide to talk to any of my parents. I just walk straight to my bedroom, and I go to sleep. And I go to bed for maybe about 30 minutes, just trying to calm down. I'm very tired. And this is about, let's say, the incident happened at like 7:30. Then this is at like 10-ish. I'm woken up by knocking on my door, maybe around like 11:45, and when I go out, it's my parents, but not just my parents. It's my parents and 4 other family members who are all out there, and I'm kind of greeted to intervention style greeting when I leave the room, which was daunting. I start to talk to them, and they're asking kind of what do I need. This is the first time I'm talking to my parents since this sort of breakdown, and I'm able to speak with them and kind of see what's going on and what we want to do. I meet with a psychologist already, so the goal would have been to get me with that psychologist the next day, that Saturday. That opportunity was taken from us because my cousin, who's 12 years older, she's 30, she decided that I wasn't safe at my house. I needed to go with her. I needed to be taken away from my family, and that was sort of a mixed proposal. Not really everybody was fond of that. But she takes me and we go to her apartment. I hang out there for maybe, an hour and a half. And she's explaining to me she's gone through stuff similar. She's been to therapy and stuff like that. And she's trying to calm me down. I'm sort of struggling with it because now I'm really tired. I can't sleep. I'm in an unfamiliar environment. I don't really know what to do. And then they ask me, what do I want to do? Well, okay, I want to go home again. Right, that's sort of been a running theme. I'm safest at home. That's how I feel. So they reluctantly, I would say, give in, and they take me home around 1 a.m. And then I'm there, and I'm with my family again, and I'm not told particularly great stuff while we're in that interrogation sort of intervention style again. So we leave the living room. My dad and he kind of takes me aside into his office, and we start talking. And that was probably the first time in the night I actually felt like I was starting to calm down. Talking one-on-one with him. We actually felt like the situation was starting to settle. We were even making jokes. We heard the doorbell ring. We thought it was more family, but he said to me, if there's really a God, then that's pizza. And we were joking about that, and while that would have been nice, when the doorbell opened, it was the police. While I was talking to my dad one-on-one and calming down, de-escalating the situation, my cousin, the same one that took me away, stepped outside without talking to either of my parents and called the police, telling them I was at an immediate risk to hurt myself, which, mind you, is a decision that she made without even checking in on me for the last hour, and this is about 6 hours removed from the actual incident. I talked to the cops, and even though they admit that I was in a good spot, there's not much that they can do here for liability reasons. And then at maybe 2 a.m, I'm taken to the hospital, taken to the emergency room. I'm taken to the emergency room, and that gets even more freaky, even less sleep. I get my blood drawn for the first time. I had to get an IV because my heart rate was getting fast. And they're like, why is your heart rate fast? And I'm stressed out. And then they pull out the needle and they're like, oh my God, it's getting faster, which really correlation there should kick in. And then the ER decides, well, he's probably best to go into inpatient services, which means that you're actually admitted into a psychiatric hospital. And then when I reach the hospital, my nightmare kind of kicks up to an 11. I don't really know what to do or what to think of any of this. I'm pried away from my family, and at the hospital, various things start to freak me out even more. What I found out is that when you're taken in this situation, you're put under a 72-hour hold, a 72-hour observation period, where the doctors at this hospital have 72 hours to examine you and decide, okay, what do we do? And they can re-up that hold and ask the court for a longer amount of time if they need to observe you for longer or get you calm with different medicines. But it's a 72-hour hold. In Nevada, it's called a legal 2000. I'm sure if you live in different states, you can probably find something similar. These 72-hour holds, I've found out recently through this process, are pretty common. Under this 72-hour hold, I'm put into the hospital for at least until Monday. Monday at about 9 a.m. While 72 hours would have already been too much, that's not how long I spent in there. I ended up being in the hospital for 133 hours. It touched on to that next Thursday, 6 days of being in this hospital. There were certain rules with the way that the situation was laid out that made it particularly terrifying and traumatic. For one, I could only see my family on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and each one of those for only about an hour. I wasn't allowed to get my own hygiene items while I was in there. The shower would sparsely have hot water. I couldn't use deodorant unless I was under the supervision of one of the technicians there. Most of the time what I did was they had a quiet room. I would put myself in there with a chair and by myself because the rest of the people in my unit, as they call it, or floor, were all drug addicts and violent criminals. That was where they essentially put that. And that's more of an insurance-based thing, but that's the crowd I was running with. So I mostly just stayed hidden away, reading a book. And that alone is pretty bad when you know a definitive end to your stay, but when you're in there, and at least in my case, speaking from my experience, you don't. Every day I didn't know whether I'd go home or I'd be kept for another 24 hours or even longer. So regarding my 72-hour hold, it started 9 a.m. that Saturday. And then I didn't meet with the actual doctor who operates on that floor until Monday. So more than 50 hours of my 72-hour hold, I didn't meet with anyone. I wasn't being observed. I wasn't even really being talked to. And then finally, I speak to the doctor, and it's a very strange situation of how it's laid out. You have everybody lining up in the floor in the unit outside, and everybody gets maybe these 2 to 5 minute consultations with the doctor. There's a lot of screaming, and a lot of technicians and security have to come in and calm down certain patients. It's very high tension. And then I finally meet with the doctor, and the doctor explains to me, okay, well, he asked me about my situation. I tell him honestly, and then he scribbles a few things on a paper, and then I leave. It was very short, which doesn't really feel like an evaluation. It feels just more like checking boxes, but... Now, that alone seems like I'm being particularly and perhaps unfairly harsh on the institution, but to really give a snapshot into how little they cared for you, at least to where I was, they tried to give me the wrong drugs. They walked into my room and they said, okay, it's time to take your medicine. And I said, well, I thought I wanted to talk to the doctor before I actually met with him. I had still met with it. They were like, well, the doctor says that you should take the medicine. And I was like, okay, well, can I meet with him tomorrow? And what's it going to do? It's a once-a-day thing. I can take it after my meeting with him. This person said, okay, yeah, you could. But then that's going to be marked as a rejection on your paper. From there, you likely are going to have to stay in here for longer. It doesn't look good if you reject the meds. And I was like, well, okay, why are you even giving me meds right now? I'm not supposed to take this until tomorrow. And I look at it, and the meds that they were trying to give me were for a 24-year-old female. It says so on the label that's on it. And I'm like, well, I'm not a 24-year-old female. You could look at me and clearly see that. It's like, oh, well, the pharmacy probably would have caught that. It's like, well, you're trying to give me meds now. That's not the pharmacy's going to catch it unless they're sitting in the corners. You were trying to give me the wrong medicine. And that can be particularly bad because if there's people on antipsychotics, that can really mess with your brain, to put it lightly. So that situation terrified me. It terrified me so much that I decided later on into my stay that I needed to meet with my attorney. Everywhere posted on the walls of this facility, they list your rights. And one of them is a right to counsel. I decided I'm going to meet with my attorney and kind of figure out what's supposed to be going on. At this point, I'm supposed to be given a treatment plan. So what's going on? I have my own doctor who can't even do an evaluation on me. So trying to get some information on the situation. Let's say that. And then when my lawyer comes in, I'm able to meet with him one-on-one. And then later he asks to meet with the social workers. And he meets with the social workers, which doesn't go very well. The social workers were not very happy to see him. I thought, well, okay, maybe they're not happy to see him, but at least I'm still allowed to have the lawyer. Until the next day, I go in and I find out, I talk to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, do you want to go home today? Of course I do. Yeah, I really think I'm ready to go. I've been taking the medicine. I feel fine. I feel clear. And then it looks like that meeting goes all right. And that's a meeting, to further specify, it's you with the doctor for a few minutes. It can't be more than 6, really. It's very short. And you have 3 social worker witnesses on the side, which actually makes it not a proper evaluation, but that's sort of beside the point. Later on, I meet with one of the social workers in the hallway, who actually was a part of that first meeting with my attorney, and she tells me not today. And I'm like, oh, well, why is it not today? I didn't even know. She says, well, you seem fine, but the doctor is now worried because of liability, since there's a lawyer involved. He's hesitant. I'm like, well, why is that? It's like, well, he could lose his job. I hear that, and it makes me, I can't process it. Even now, it's just so baffling to me. Like, well, what? You're telling me that because I met with a lawyer, I'm being kept here longer. And yeah, that was essentially it. I'm kept for 2 days longer after that meeting, simply because they wanted to, quote, observe how the medicine was affecting me, and due to hesitation because of the liability angle. Both of those points are interesting. We talked about the latter, but with the first one, that's not an accurate reason as to why you can keep someone in with this hold. The hold is predicated on someone being an immediate risk to themselves or others. Actually, that's kind of a problem with when my cousin called, sort of legally, because it was 6 hours removed from the actual breakdown. And she didn't even check in on me. So how can I be at an, quote, immediate risk when you haven't checked on me in like an hour, right? My parents, bless them, they keep trying to get me out. And eventually on Thursday, I'm let out. It's really crushing being in there and being held, because it's hard to sleep. You're given a mattress that's maybe this thin, which on its own is whatever. I had 2 different roommates while I was there. The first of which got into a fight while I was there. That same day he actually was able to leave, so I don't know. That fits with the immediate risk to himself or others if he's getting into fights and then being left from the facility. He was so ruckus in the middle of the night, they actually offered me a sedative. And it sounds crazy to say out loud, but they offered me medicine just to help me sleep because my roommate was so hyper and erratic. Second roommate had really just awful constipation, where the room smelled so bad that one of the technicians agreed to let me sleep in the quiet room because it was like toxic in there. I don't really have anything against that guy. I hope he got some Laxex or something. It's a hard situation to describe, even trying to put it into words now and with my psychologist. I feel like I'm still not entirely processing it, because you're in there barely able to talk to my family. The only people I can really talk to and hold a real conversation is the medical health technicians, who all of which were surprised that I was in there for as long as I was, because I to them seemed normal. You in my stay, because it was so long, it's one of the longer stays that the technicians had seen. I was approaching kind of the longest. I was about to set a record. While I'm staying there, they're coming in and then they're leaving. They're cycling out while I'm still just waiting there, counting the minutes. Looking back at this, if I kind of step outside myself, you could say, look, it's an awful situation, but the 72-hour hold is there for a reason. I just got roped into it. But conversations I had with other patients who were like me, they were calm, clear-headed, but they had a rough day, let's say that. They were talking to me, and it just breaks your heart. And I'm really glad that this lady got out, because it's just awful. But she'd been married to her husband for about 23 years. And with this longtime husband, she found out that he was cheating. With that, she got particularly and rightfully angry. And what he did is he called the police on her after she got mad at him for cheating on her with a younger woman. And that was justification enough for her to get in there. We can talk about the extent of these things, but I firmly believe, and I know that from everybody I've talked to, these thoughts are not uncommon. And if you're feeling them, don't feel like you're alone. It's just the human condition. And to know that just like one bad moment can get you roped into this. And I don't know if it's just a Nevada thing. From what I've researched everywhere else, it seems you can go on legal boards where people are just grieving families are asking for counseling on this because they had similar situations. Their young daughters and sons were taken away and they just don't know what to do because you're kind of stripped from your rights when you're in there. And due process, and it's bizarre. I honestly don't know how it continues on this way, and it's something I'm looking into further because if I was told that I was the last person to ever go through a situation like this, I would be thrilled. I genuinely hope that none of you out there ever go through a situation like this. It's awful. Nobody's an island, and I know that it's been really tough on my family for different reasons on that too. I the next day, to give you more insight into my cousin, she actually called the police on my mom, warning that she also was at risk of hurting herself. In that case, it was dismissed because the police came and they saw that my mom was clearly fine, stressed out for losing her barely 18 son. But my cousin, she called on my mom as well, which in my mind is completely inexcusable, considering my mom was fine, and I don't know how you can do that, and I don't know. That really sucked. that really is inexcusable, and I'm glad that it didn't go that far. I'm glad that I was the only one that was taken away. And I'd like to say that since I got out, everything's been all right. And it's nothing that I'm going through is anything for you out there to worry about. But that's one of the reasons I want to make this video, because it is weighing on me. It's taking its toll, and I don't entirely know what to do with it. I have trouble sleeping. I guess they're called panic attacks. My breath gets short and my heart gets fast. I've never had a panic attack before this. I guess I can cross that off the bucket list. It's been particularly hard for everybody to go through. So I'm taking it day by day. And I will say I'm getting better in strides. In a lot of ways, depression wins through isolation. It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to this with all of you, because I've been alone in this. I've had my dark moments since, as far as I can remember, back to the 6th grade. For any of you out there who have gone through these same things, or know somebody who is, or whatever, don't be afraid to open up. Definitely do not be afraid to seek professional help. I wish I'd had more advice. I wish that I could tell you more of what to do. I don't know. I'm still figuring it out myself. I will say, though, that if you could do one thing for me, I'm going to leave in the description and I'll put it up on screen, the suicide hotline numbers. I want you to save these in your phone. Hopefully they never come into use with you. But if you know somebody who's going through it, or you are going through it yourself, then you can call these numbers and they can help you out in this situation. So hopefully these resources can help you, because they exist and they can help you do it. There's text lines as well, in case you don't want to talk to someone, voice to voice, because in my experience, depression is the most powerful when it makes you feel alone, and you are not alone. You are worth more than you think. I know that's hard to hear, and I've been in spots where that's the most difficult thing to comprehend, but you are worth more than you think. Until next time, folks, take care. I've been Skip the Tutorial, and have a good one. All right.